think we're going to kick off now. So I hope you had a good lunch. I can specifically recommend some of the desserts. Actually, I had probably too many of them. So I was trying to get Andrea to have some of my desserts actually on my plate. So aside from that, we're going to come back now for a session on machine learning in wealth and investment management, talking about the opportunities and the challenges. So this will be in the form of a fireside chat. So it's going to be a relatively short session. And I'd like to kick off just by introducing ourselves. So I guess you've already seen and heard maybe too much from me already. But I'm Saeed Amen, the co-founder of Turnleaf Analytics, and we do inflation forecasting. I'm also a visiting lecturer at Queen Mary University of London, where I teach topics around Python and alternative data to students studying master's programs. And maybe for Andrea,
my name's Andrea Nardon. I've recently joined a fintech company in Dubai as a CIO, Bear. Bear has been active in developing trading strategies for the crypto markets. We are applying for an asset management license. So our ambition is to launch a crypto fund very soon, and then potentially we are planning to take that technology back to traditional markets.
Okay, well, maybe I'll kick off with the first question, which is discussing the types of areas that we can use for machine learning. There's obviously many different areas within wealth management and investment management, but where do you feel that machine learning could be particularly well applied in this area?
I mean, I've been a quant all my life, and my job has always been trying to, use quantitative tools to try to extract alpha and build more successful trading strategies. So clearly, machine learning is an area where you can really tackle the big problem of alpha and portfolio construction. And after this, I'll have a 30-minute session on it where I'll try to give some examples. But I think machine learning at the moment has been, because it's done by quants typically, and quants tend to focus on returns and risk, and they're not looking beyond that. I think there are many areas within the asset management and wealth management space where you can successfully use machine learning for removing risks from the process. I'm thinking about settlement processes. I'm thinking about risk management more generically. Really operational, traditional back office. All my life I've seen tons of mistakes done by humans in doing things badly in the back office. And I think, I think machine learning is perfectly suited to resolve and introduce automation in that part of the organization that typically is run by human beings.
Yeah, no, I would concur with that. It's kind of not the most glamorous of use cases that people think of, but they are very important. So one area which I've looked at, which again is not the most glamorous, is just looking at extracting tables from PDFs. So if you have one PDF, obviously you can copy it, and potentially you could use a human to do that. But especially now with the advances in computer vision, actually, you get actually, depending upon the formatting of the document, you can actually get good accuracy from extracting tables from PDFs with machine learning. So that's...
Marketing is another area where machine learning is not really used, and I think you can do a lot with it.
Yeah, definitely, if you have enough of a client base to actually build up data on each of your individual clients. So I remember seeing actually a sell-side presentation looking at ways of pitching to clients. So they would know potentially when a client would be interested in a certain name and that type of thing. The next question I want to ask is, I guess it's a bit of a loaded question, asking you, what do you think are the benefits of applying machine learning compared to kind of more traditional models? So, and in this sense, I'm not meaning machine learning including linear regression. I'm putting linear regression, say, on the outside. But where do you think, for example, having a more advanced technique than linear regression would actually be helpful, like in terms of use cases that you've thought about?
Well, I think there are many use cases that show how machine learning can be successfully applied, for instance, to trading, and you can use it really to do things that the linear world isn't really able to do. But we don't often stress the opposite of your question, which is what are the damages that machine learning tools can really bring and do. Explainability is one of the big problems that we have, and I think it's an area where we as quants tend to believe often in the model and the results. We tend to lie very much. the outcome, the performance, the risk that these models are able to generate, but we're not really able to understand exactly what the model is trying to learn. And the fact that the literature is written with terminologies that are more like of a fiction book rather than a scientific book, it doesn't help. You know, models are training. I mean, they are fitted. They're not really training. They're not learning things. They are, you know, it's a probabilistic game. And, you know, and whenever you build into that thinking that your model has learned something and you can be superior to others, I think that that's very, very dangerous. However, your question was very directly to the benefits, and the benefits, I think, they're very simple to use. I think it's incredibly, you know, the machine learning community is operating in an open source environment, and the entry barriers for any quant are incredibly low. And you can easily play with these tools. It's literally playing, and I think that that's the major benefit. But the risks are a problem.
Yeah, no, I think it's the same with many environments. If you make something easy, then people can explore, but equally people can get lost. They can have accidents, etc. So the ease of use, I think, needs to be tempered with actually an understanding of what the models are, what their limits are at the same time. So I always see these auto ML tools, and maybe they work well, and I think potentially in the right hands they could do, but if you have no background in statistics potentially, and you just feed in any sort of data, it could end up being like a risk that people don't really think about.
And the other big problem is that we live in this big world of data, and you know, I started 22 odd years ago in the quant space, and we used to call our job quants. Now you have data scientists and you've got computer scientists, and the data scientist actually really believes that the answer, the logic is found on the data.
Yeah.
And so they got this tendency of throwing a lot of data to the problem, hoping that the model is able to come, you know, give you the answer, and that's dangerous. I mean, that's very dangerous.
Yeah, well, I suppose it's a case of you need to provide the right data to it, but then you need domain expertise about the problem that you're solving to know which type of data is likely to be relevant and which type of data is likely to be spurious. Yeah. Obviously, everyone's heard of machine learning now, even if you have nothing to do with data science. How do you think an organization can go about building a machine learning capability? This could be for an asset manager, but also more broadly for other types of institutions.
I mean, that's relatively easy to do. I think the entry barriers are relatively low. So I think it's very easy for any company to build a good desk doing that. The problem is the culture that you have in most of the organizations. The problem is not to build a model that is on paper successful, but it's to find a consensus of backing the model and being brought forward. You know, I'm often asked this question, and I often give the example of what happened to me a few years ago when the iPad Pro was invented, and my boss at that time came to me very proud to show me that he bought the iPad Pro, and just to show me that he was a tech guy. And I says, "Where's the pencil?" And he says, "What's the pencil?" I says, "But that's the main reason behind the iPad Pro. You know, you don't buy an iPad Pro without the pencil." The next day he had the pencil. So the problem is really finding, having that culture that's able to back technology. It's not just about using technology, but understanding what technology can do and how you can support it throughout the organization. So even if the entry barriers, as I said, are relatively low, you know, and you will find many companies that they want to have data scientists and computer scientists working on very interesting problems. But when you ask, are you using them in production? The answer is no. It's just a research environment, right? And I think that that's the biggest problem we have. In fact, I think very little has been done in the financial market, really, the financial sector.
No, you read about these types of scenarios in the press all the time. Some large financial firm has hired a group of data scientists, and then they just seem to be set back in a different part of the firm, and they don't end up interacting with the rest of it. In a room like this. In a room, without any windows, obviously. And they end up just answering your own problems, whilst to be truly successful, they need to be brought into the mix and with the business. So I was just about to say, I do have an iPad Pro and I do have a pencil here. So one irony is I think the handwriting recognition software I use here always translates machine learning as machine teaming. So there's a deficiency there. So one area which you've started to look at more recently is crypto markets. I know you've been working more in traditional markets up until now. So how has your experience of using machine learning, but just more broadly, developing systematic trading ideas and strategies in crypto been different to the kind of the more traditional asset classes that you've looked at?
Yeah, there are many differences. I mean, it's a very interesting question because there are many similarities with financial markets. Obviously, we as quants, we like to trade anything that moves. Doesn't matter if it moves up or down. You try to build models that are able to capture that. But there are differences. The very first one that I'm realizing now, it's a tiny bit more stressful. It's a 24/7 market. So if you wake up in the middle of the night, you check it. And in the past, I didn't do it. It's very volatile. So the volatility of digital coins, take Bitcoin, is 4 or 5 times higher than the volatility of the equity markets. But volatility means opportunities, which is of course very, very good. I think it's from a modeling point of view, I think the continuity, the 24/7 is a very interesting thing. The fact that you have liquidity throughout the 24 hours, including weekends, is very exciting. The fact that there is no official pricing is another interesting thing. So there are mispricing and opportunities throughout various exchanges, although those opportunities are sort of closing down or have closed down mostly. You need to be very, very smart on how you're doing it. There are many more inefficiencies that you have in financial markets, so start playing with latencies and things like that. It's an interesting thing. But when it comes to the modeling, I think it's really very good to have these tools, because one of the big problems that I had back in equities and multi-asset was always, whenever you present models to people, you need to explain the fundamentals of the model. You need to explain the logic behind why is the model picked up certain relationships, and you always need to back him with macroeconomic or generic, the theoretical framework that we studied at school. When it comes to Bitcoin, the value is 0, in my opinion. Therefore, there is no fundamentals as such. And so I think it's much easier for a quant to operate in that environment, because you know that you don't have to justify all the time with valuations. So I think that these are the key differences. And obviously, people operating in that field are very young, very, very tech-driven, so more computer scientists rather than data scientists. And so it's also very interesting from that angle, really.
Yeah, I was going to say one of the most irritating things I think with traditional markets is you always have to look at when the market holidays are and filter your data. So maybe just from that aspect, it's kind of easier in crypto space. One thing we discussed is in terms of building ML capability within an organization. Obviously, as part of that, you need to hire the right people. And you've already mentioned, for example, like data scientists and so on. What do you think are the most important skills required for hiring when it comes to machine learning types of roles? So I'm not just saying like the ability to do import sklearn, but kind of a bit more nuanced.
Well, I think I genuinely believe that the success of those people that are using these models for trading is not their superior competency on the modeling itself, but is on their intuition of using the models and trying to capture aspects of the markets others haven't thought of. So I think the company where I'm now, we employ, so diversity plays a role.
Yeah. I
think it really does play a role. So making sure that you have people that come with different backgrounds, that studied in different places, that they got different drives in their research process. I think it's very, very useful. So as I said, I think machine learning, the coding itself is relatively simple today. You always speak about Python. I still use MATLAB, and everybody can code in their own language, but you have plenty of packages that are offering you the possibility to play with this model. So I think that's relatively easy. It's finding intuition, and intuition is not necessarily linked to the degree or the university they studied.
Okay, well, I think now might be a good opportunity. We've got a few minutes left. If anyone has any questions for us on the topic here. So. Oh, there's a question from Kaya there. Yeah.
Hi, thanks for the talk. It's quite interesting. I was wondering if you have any examples or any thoughts on how to deploy machine learning algorithms for the purposes of marketing. And I'll give you one example as that I've heard of, right? Which is that, let's say that you have the data science team working on NLP, and what they could do instead of trying to deploy that NLP to find some alpha is they could go to their potential, to websites of potential clients, or to just news flow data itself, and find out which clients seem to be firing their current asset managers, and which could open up opportunities for the firm in which the data scientist is working on to pitch themselves as a new asset manager. That kind of stuff as a potential new route for machine learning.
I think in terms of, I have heard of web scraping of jobs, essentially, that you're talking about. So in particular, trying to look at new hirings for specific companies, but that's more in the context of buying stocks and selling stocks as opposed to individual companies. One area which I've seen, which I can't remember if I mentioned, was in the context of, I guess it's more of a sales example, trying to look at patterns in client behavior. And then from that, if you end up having an axe on a certain asset, potentially knowing that maybe that client might be more interested in it than others potentially. So that's a use case that I've found specifically from a financial context. I suppose from marketing context, I guess we all see it on Facebook, etc., that when you Google a name, then suddenly magically it appears that you're bombarded by adverts for that. So whenever I've been on holiday, I repeatedly get told to go back to the same place, which I've just been to. So I don't know if you've got any thoughts on that.
No, I actually haven't, but I guess you'll agree with me that we tend to use the word digital marketing in the wrong way, because there's nothing digital in the buy side about marketing. So, and I think it's because possibly we've been employing the wrong people in the wrong place. So I think generating leads, it's something that you can do with NLP, possibly, and not just that. But it is not done yet. I think the quality or the technicalities of the people working there is, it's not good enough for doing it. But yeah.
It's an opportunity.
It is an opportunity, absolutely, yes.
Okay, are there any other questions? Okay, well, if there's no other questions, I think we'll round it up, and I'd like to give Andrea a round of applause.
Thank you.